This medium tank is genuinely one of my favourite tanks, at least at tier 6, and there's a reason why this tier 6 medium tank is one of the best tier 6s in the game, as well as the fact that it's a very good one to actually learn how to play medium tanks, as well as be able to get way better playing a tank like this one and just generally improve as a player much quicker and learn a lot that you can transfer, whether you're playing a heavy tank, a light tank, a tank destroyer, whatever it might be. This is quite a nice little hybrid tank that's going to teach you a lot. So although it isn't heavily armoured, you are not going to be bouncing anything in the Cromwell. This is the tier 6 British medium tank, for those of you that might be wondering. The Cromwell, it features a very high top speed, and in order to get that top speed it sacrifices its armour, and it also sacrifices quite a bit when it comes to its gun. And that's not to say that the gun on this thing's bad. All it means is that you don't get the high alpha damage that you may see with some other tier 6 mediums, something like a 240 alpha. This one gets significantly lower. And you can see we've penned 2 opponents already within the very start of this game, dealing 277 damage. So yes, 135 damage is what you can deal with this tank, which for a tier 6 can feel a little bit less rewarding, especially if you're fighting things like the T-34-88, which are consistently dealing, 50% more damage than you every single shot, and are very competitive with its penetration, that sort of things. So the Cromwell doesn't get the best kind of standard ammunition, certainly doesn't get the best premium ammunition either, so you're kind of stuck in this little kind of mid-range where you do have to fire premium if you're playing in a tier 8 game, and so what better way to showcase this tank than playing in a bottom tier game. So we are a tier 6 in a tier 8 game. We've got loads of opponents that are going to be a big pain, especially some of those high tier mediums. Case in point, the Wind of Arrakis, the tier 8 medium from the German line, which features a pretty strong gun, 400 alpha damage that one has. And so if we take a hit in basically this tank in this game, we're going to lose nearly half of our hit points in one shell, pretty much. And we've also got the risk of also running into a problem whereby, someone YOLOs us and can pretty much remove all of our hit points, and there's not a whole lot we can do about it. So you have to be quite aware when playing this sort of tank, as well as being quite opportunistic. But what this tank offers is the ability to get very good at leading shells, being able to get into constant engagements. You're going to learn a ton about aiming, where to aim, that sort of thing when you play a tank like this, because at the end of the day you're firing off a lot more shells and getting that practice in early on. And so as a starting medium tank line, this is actually quite a good one. You're going to learn how to aim properly, how to be able to use lower penetration tanks, which is going to serve you well later on down the line, where you can't just fire premium directly at people's front and pen every single time. I'm looking at you, tank destroyer enjoyers. So with that being said, this tank really nice at being able to do it. So you can see we're playing quite passively in this tier 8 game. We can't push in. We are not that sort of vehicle. You can't go in, or and equally you don't want to be too far back where you're not doing anything for the rest of the game. And so this is a very nice one. We 3-marked it a long time ago. I probably should go for the 4 marks because I'm pretty sure we're at about 90 something percent anyway, maybe 93%, something like that, so it shouldn't take too long to go for 4 marks on this thing, and it's very good, so it'll make it that a bit easier. So when it comes to playing this tank, however, you do obviously have a couple of issues that you'll come across, and I'm pretty sure everyone who's played the Cromwell will come into this issue, is that because it is so fast, you can often end up flipping. And those of you that have played the Snakebite, which is a premium version of the Cromwell, which goes, upwards of 90 kilometers an hour when you've got all of the speed boost equipment, yeah, you'll probably know about that fact. And the Cromwell does suffer from this as well. If you make a sudden turn whilst going at top speed, you can end up almost rolling your vehicle. So you don't want that when you're playing a tank like this, especially when you got that sort of thing going on. So yeah, when you make sure that you are kind of thinking about where you need to be next, this tank's very good. You can push forward, you can get into positions. You can see me here just trying to go for the tracking assist. This tank's very good at doing that and keeping people tracked. So when you have the opportunity to track someone, you can add to your assistance damage so easily. that it almost feels broken, like you are constantly tracking people and aiming for tracks, and often a lot of the time you can pen them as well, especially if they're the same tier as you. It's a very competitive medium tank. The DPM on this thing is very, very good, and as long as you find yourself opponents, you can farm them really easily. And another thing about it is that you also get the opportunity to kind of push in and be able to kind of farm consistently throughout the game. And oh god, what the hell? We get pushed over by a Falcon T92. A nice little style out ending to that game. Yeah, we come top of the game either way. 2.26 thousand damage with 1472 base XP. So a decent game in that one. But let's have a look at a little bit of another one, because, you know, that shows the tier 8 game. What about when you have a little bit of a different matchup? What about some of the extra things that you'll need to know about playing medium tanks at this tier? So one thing that we can touch on in this video, we can go for the equipment loadout. What have we actually ran with this vehicle? What should you typically take on a medium tank when you play World of Tanks console? Well, the first thing is I will always take advanced loader if I possibly can, unless there's a very, very good reason not to. It's pretty much a guaranteed medium tank equipment slot. Advanced loader just boosts up your DPM, and when you have such low alpha, you want to be able to kind of churn out as many rounds as possible, make those re-tracking shots where you can get loads of shells into an opponent quite quickly and as fast as possible. Is what advanced loader does. It really is a big boost to make your tank work that little bit harder. And of course, when you've also got the DPM, you want to make sure that your tank can remain undetected. You want to stay hidden. You want to be able to outspot opponents. And so the kind of loadouts I pretty much run on all of my mediums are advanced optics as well as advanced concealment. This boosts up our view range and makes us harder to detect at the same time. So we can essentially remain undetected throughout the game. And when you're in a pretty fast vehicle, this can be really effective, because essentially what you can do is you can get into a position, you can spot people, you can get damage using view range mechanics, and then you can kind of leave. Like, you can get away from there pretty easily as well. So then you can use the speed to get away and use the camo that you get when you're actually moving in this tank with silent driving perk to make it just that bit easier. You can see here the KV-85s come straight through the middle of the map and is giving us potentially some free damage, hopefully, throughout this game. But I'll show you exactly the sorts of plays that you'll need to make and get accustomed to, and the sorts of engagements that will often happen when you play a medium tank like this, especially when you're kind of in the forefront trying to go for some damage. You can see here we just knocked down a couple of trees and buildings. And that's something you can't do with a lot of the tanks in the game if you don't have the reload speed that we do. One shell will knock down a building. It doesn't matter what caliber. If I was in an FE 4005, we would have knocked down that building, but it would have required 2 shells. But because we got low alpha, we don't need to take 2 shells. So it's a nice little addition to playing these low alpha damage tanks. So when you do get the opportunity to shoot down a couple of buildings, open up space, that sort of stuff, you can do. When you've got so many rounds and this tank. So the KV-85 is being pretty aggressive. Now, this sort of play, bad for him. I mean, it's not a good play to make, and we just really need to help him out. So we're going to go in, we'll get rid of this guy, and then we can focus on the next guy. So we come up from behind him, we bounce one off of him, which I was not expecting, but he finishes off my teammate here in the BDR. I mean, it was a pretty aggressive play from the BDR to go into that location, so I wouldn't recommended it to him, especially considering it was basically wasted because he did not need to go in to take that guy out. It was not necessary. So he would have got taken out throughout this game anyway, so throwing yourself away to get a tank that's already pretty much secured himself as being taken out in the game, not a good idea. So we go after the Chinu. The Chinu is doing the kind of YOLO play. I mean, he somewhat uses the area around him to avoid taking some hits, which is a good sign that a player actually has some level of competency. But you can see here, this is the sort of thing you're going to have to do in tanks like this, is essentially track people. Tracking is one of the biggest things that will change your game. Like, hands down, one of the biggest things. Obviously, being penned by a heat round from a broken little tier 6 artillery obviously doesn't help. that will definitely change your game. But when you track people, it really does make a massive difference, because you can turn an engagement where maybe you only get one shot off into an engagement where you can get, you know, 5, 6, 7, you can maybe even full health tanks. And it's certainly happened for me where I've tracked someone, I'm hidden, and I just keep tracking and tracking and tracking. Maybe even they go undetected, but because I'm aiming in the exact same space, aiming exactly where their tracks are, we can keep firing off those rounds and take away all of their health. So it's something you can do in your games. Cromwell does it fantastically, and the tank in general is just an amazing vehicle to play. It really feels like a pleasure. And you can see me here, I am a little bit triggered that the arty hit me, so, you know, as a self-righteous medium tank driver that's been penned by artillery, we have to go for the artillery piece. I mean, he's got pretty much a decent amount of health. We could have definitely got more damage out of the game if we went for the medium, but that's not what we're doing here. We're going after the little pesky rat that's at the back of the game. So we put in a couple into him, and there you go, we pick up a couple hundred damage there, so it's a nice little addition. And then our teammate in the Bisotto, I believe it is, or the Semovente or something like that, the Italian TD, manages to remove the M44. And then our teammates are going to take out this medium, hopefully. And yeah, just in general, I thought I'd make this video not only as a kind of showcase of the Cromwell and what it can do, and of course you guys probably know how good this tank is, but also as a showcases how tanks like this will make you improve drastically and improve your game, where you'll actually do way better once you've understood and played these tanks for any length of time. And this is one of the ways I genuinely got better a lot faster than what I've seen from some of the other counterparts who started playing at the same sort of time as me. So hopefully you guys will learn a couple things and also try out this line leading up to the FE4202 and the Centurion Action X. A brilliant line to actually go down, and as a new player to medium tanks, it will teach you a lot. And hopefully this video was helpful to you. If it was, make sure to like it, and if you want to see me in the next video, make sure to subscribe, and I will see you there. Goodbye.